Naoya Inoue's reputation for effortless destruction is so overwhelming that most fans remember only the quick finishes and ignore the nights when victory demanded a darker kind of courage. Look closely, though, and you find 3 early encounters that exposed fissures in the monster's armor, forcing him to improvise under duress and reveal the depth of his will. Each bout unfolded at a different stage of his ascent, one while nursing a fresh injury, one while still a wide-eyed prodigy, and one against an iron-chinned veteran determined to turn back time. Inoue emerged triumphant every time, yet those wins were paid for with pain, improvisation, and a hard lesson. Genius means little without grit, and power means nothing if it cannot survive the fire of its own making. These forgotten wars begin in 2015, when Inoue, barely 22, returned from a shattered right hand, walked into a dogfight with David Carmona, and discovered that a one-handed monster still had to be twice the fighter just to stay alive. They reach back to 2013, when a 20-year-old Inoue risked his entire future by facing Ryoichi Taguchi in only his 4th professional outing, trading leather with Japan's reigning light flyweight champion for 10 rounds that left his family in tears. And they culminate in 2016, on New Year's Eve, when Kohei Kono, an unbreakable samurai whose beard had withstood decades of punishment, marched into the Ariake Coliseum vowing to outlast the young Phenom Storm, only to learn that speed and savagery can saw through granite if applied with enough precision. String these nights together, and a single truth emerges. The scariest thing about Naoya Inoue is not the concussive snap of his punches, but the way he smiles, wipes away blood, and solves problems in real time while chaos rages around him. The Carmona bout began with unfinished business swirling around Inoue's head and hand. 12 months earlier he had broken the 2nd metacarpal of his right fist while obliterating Omar Narbi's, an injury so severe that surgeons warned it might never regain full strength. When the cast finally came off, Inoue insisted on leaping straight back into a title defense against David Carmona, a mandatory challenger from Mexico City who owned only 9 knockouts in 20 wins but fought like a starving pit bull. Carmona had already failed once at the championship level and understood that this was not just another payday but his last chance at immortality. On May 8, 2016, the 2 men met in the humid cauldron of Tokyo's Sumida Ward Gymnasium, and the opening bell rang like a pistol shot. Carmona tore across the ring, hurling overhand rights as if trying to break a door off its hinges, determined to test the Japanese star's fragile hand by forcing a brawl. To the crowd's surprise, the strategy worked. Midway through round 2, while countering out of an exchange, Inoue re-injured the same metacarpal. Pain shot up his arm, and his famous right cross suddenly refused to fire. From that moment forward, he had to fight 9 rounds with little more than a jab, a probing left hook, and the occasional right he disguised behind anguish and adrenaline. Carmona sensed opportunity and poured it on, shifting angles, digging hooks into the rib cage, and shouting whenever he landed to rattle the champion's equilibrium. Inoue answered with footwork and feints, using lateral movement to keep the Mexican outside his comfort zone and slamming the left hand into every available target. Twice he stemmed Carmona's surge by stepping inside and ripping an uppercut that traveled barely 6 inches yet landed like a blackjack. Each time his father, Shingo, leaned over the ropes between rounds and whispered reminders about body placement. Bend the knees, slice the liver, make him breathe glass. In the 11th, Carmona's face ballooned beneath the eyes, but he still pressed forward, daring Inoue to prove that greatness was more than highlight reel detonations. The champion obliged. Early in the 12th, he took a deep breath, clenched his damaged fist, and drove a straight right down the pipe, pain exploding through bone yet sending Carmona stumbling sideways as if the ring had tilted. That single defiant shot widened the final scores to 118-109 twice and 116-111 once, sealing only the 2nd decision win of Inoue's career. He left the ring blowing on his knuckles like a man cooling forged steel, while Carmona, cut and concussed, wore a grin of grim respect. He had exposed the monster's humanity but learned an equal measure of his heart point 2 years earlier, that heart had been an untested theory. On August 25, 2013, at Tokyo's revered Korakuen Hall, Naoya Inoue stepped through the ropes for his fourth professional fight and found former national champion Ryoichi Taguchi waiting with bad intentions. Taguchi was a seasoned 50-fight amateur who had reinvented himself as a lanky, switch-hitting professional, wielding a jab like bamboo and a right hand that cracked on impact. Pundits wondered aloud whether Team Inoue was reckless to gamble their prodigy against such danger so soon, but Shingo dismissed the concern with a shrug. "If we baby him, he will break later. If we test him now, he will grow." From the first minute, Taguchi made that test feel like an exam administered at gunpoint. He slammed home double jabs, slid to his left, and threaded right crosses through Inoue's high guard, forcing the youngster to taste mature speed for the first time. Inoue's brain catalogued each connection, adjusted distance, and responded with piston body shots meant to pay dividends in later rounds. By the end of the third, both men wore tiny crimson halos above their brows, thin cuts that glistened under the house lights. Taguchi refused to yield. He bulldogged forward in the pocket, daring Inoue to exchange hook for hook. The monster answered with a grin and did exactly that. Round 5 became a blur of pivots, short uppercuts, and shoulder rolls, the gallery roaring whenever one fighter's head snapped back, gasping whenever a liver hook landed with the sound of an axe splitting wet wood. Between rounds, Shingo saw his son's breathing steady and told him to lift the tempo, angle out after every pair, freeze him with the right, then stripe the ribs again. Inoue obeyed, and small cracks opened in Taguchi's rhythm. Yet the older man would not fold. In the 7th, he landed a booming right that rocked Inoue and sent murmurs through the crowd. The prodigy's knees bent, eyes widened, and then composure returned. He slid a half-step left, fired a left-right left into Taguchi's solar plexus, and emerged from the pocket looking as if the scare had clarified his purpose. The final 2 rounds devolved into controlled brutality, both fighters standing chest to chest, trading 3-punch combinations as if the judges did not exist. When the bell finally split them apart, Inoue's mother sobbed in the front row, overcome by the sight of her son painting abstract bruises across Taguchi's ribs while absorbing concussive echoes himself. Scorecards of 98-92, 98-93, and 97-94 crowned Inoue the new Japanese light flyweight champion, yet he walked back to his corner shaking his head, annoyed that Taguchi had become the first opponent he could not drop. Later, in the locker room, he admitted that Taguchi's resilience had taught him more than any knockout. Sometimes the canvas will not come to you. Then you must build the victory with sweat instead of thunder. By the time December 31, 2016 arrived, Inoue was 12-0, holder of the WBO super flyweight title, and widely regarded as the scariest puncher under featherweight. Kohei Kono, a grizzled ex-champion with a granite beard and a taste for trench warfare, saw in the youngster a chance to carve his name back into history. At 36 he had never been stopped. Indeed, no opponent had even staggered him badly enough to test his famous chin. Most analysts predicted he would last the distance and perhaps frustrate the monster with veteran angles. Kono had other ideas. He intended to stand in the fire and prove that iron will beat youthful napalm. The first bell inside Ariake Coliseum unleashed pandemonium. Inoue flicked jabs to measure range. Kono ignored them and charged, winging hooks that whistled past the champion's temples. The pace doubled by the end of the opening round, Inoue scoring with left-right counters, Kono burying his forehead in the younger man's chest, and ripping body shots. Shingo yelled for space, but Inoue shook his head. This was the test he wanted. By round 3 the monster's combinations landed cleaner, snapping Kono's head back, yet the veteran kept trudging forward, mouthpiece gritted, firing in return and occasionally catching Inoue flush enough to draw gasps. One uppercut left the champion blinking. A looping right sent sweat spraying like spindrift. Neither shot forced retreat. Instead, Inoue began slipping punches by millimeters, countering with right hands so short the camera struggled to capture them, each one landing with a bark. Round 5 escalated into a phone booth brawl, both fighters toe-to-toe, neither willing to step back. Ringside media typed furiously, realizing they were witnessing a generational crossing disguised as a fistfight. Early in the 6th, Kono bulldozed forward again, and Inoue met him with a tight left hook that detonated on the cheek. For the first time in his long career, Kono's legs betrayed him. He sank to all fours, eyes wide with the stunned expression of a man who has just found the floor where air used to be. He beat the count, but the end was inevitable. Inoue circled out, reset, then unleashed a precision assault, left hook, right cross, shovel hook to the ribs, that pinned Kono upright against the ropes, body rigid, hands frozen in mid-parry. Referee Yoshida waved it off as Kono slumped, resistance finally shattered. Inoue vaulted onto the corner turnbuckle, arms aloft, then climbed down to kneel beside the fallen warrior, offering a gentle pat on the shoulder before the medics arrived. That gesture summed up the entire monster paradox. Ferocious inside the ropes, unfailingly respectful once the echoes faded. Kono, who had eaten the best artillery of his era without blinking, would never again fight at world title level. Inoue's fists had subtracted those final ounces of durability that separate contenders from survivors. Taken together, these 3 nights form a hidden spine beneath the monster's highlight reel. Carmona proved that Inoue could adapt under physical duress, fighting one-handed for 9 rounds and still widening the scorecards. Taguchi showed that poise and pattern recognition, not just raw power, allowed the prodigy to outlast an opponent who refused to fall. Kono demonstrated that the legend of an unbreakable chin is still subject to demolition when perfect timing meets fearless accuracy. Each bout exposed a different challenge: injury, inexperience, and anvil-tough resistance. Yet each ended with Inoue's arm raised, lessons absorbed, and myth expanded. The casual fan may remember only the lightning knockouts that followed in later years. Peano poleaxed in half a minute, Rodriguez reduced in 2 rounds, Donaire undone in a surgical rematch. But the bedrock of those triumphs lies here, in the forgotten nights when victory was not inevitable and the monster had to bleed for every inch of canvas. Look closely at the footage, and you can almost see the blueprint being drafted in real time. The way he adjusts his stance to protect an injured hand, the way he reorders combination sequences when the early knockout refuses to materialize, and the way he exchanges fire with a veteran slugger just long enough to calculate range before closing the show. These are not highlights fit for a 30-second clip. They are chapters of character. They explain why, when the bell rings today, Naoya Inoue does not merely hunt opponents. He studies them, breaks them down, and builds his legend upon the ruins. For every explosive finish that leaves crowds gasping, there is a quieter memory etched in the monster's mind. A Mexican challenger who forced him to jab through pain, a national champion who refused to fall, an aging samurai who made him prove that granite, too, can crumble. And it is in those memories, not just the knockouts, that Naoya Inoue's art truly resides.